Morning, everybody, and welcome to the Transport for Europe webinar. Today, we will talk about the importance of digital accessibility in universities and also about how we should create accessible digital content for the entire university community, for students, teachers, and administrative staff. This webinar has two parts. First, we will talk about what is accessibility and assistive technology are, as well as the digital accessibility requirements and how to apply them on Microsoft Word and to generate a PDF document. Our first topic is what is accessibility? Accessibility is the degree to which everyone can perceive, understand, use, and navigate the information content in a digital content, regardless of their technical, cognitive, or physical capabilities. How does a person with a disability access content? Okay. People with disabilities use assistive technologies to access context. For example, if I cannot see, I use a screen reader. If my vision is limited, I use a screen magnifier. If I cannot listen to a movie, I read the subtitles. If I don't have a mobility in my hands, I can dictate and give orders. For example, I am a person with low vision and a hearing disability, and I have an iPhone, and I can use a screen reader and a screen magnifier. Everybody has this assistive technology in their smartphones. Si you use Android, go to the settings, accessibility, and enable talkback. And if you use an iPhone like mine, go to settings, then to accessibility, and enable voiceover. Okay? I make doubt, por ejemplo. Activar voiceover.
De acuerdo. He activado el ajuste voiceover.
Okay. I enable voiceover in my iPhone, and the screen reader can read all elements on the screen. Okay. I move a finger for all screen, and a screen reader says all of the content. Okay, and we can click an element with two taps. Okay. Desactivar voiceover.
De acuerdo.
Also, we can use a screen magnifier. Move with three fingers on screen, okay, and we can magnify Okay. 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 If you use an Android, you can enable gestures magnifier in settings in accessibility of the Android operating system. Okay. And also we can tell Siri or Google Assistant to do it for use. For example, on iPhone, I can say, hey Siri, enable voiceover. More examples of assistive technology. If I have trouble understanding what I read, I can configure the text to my needs. In the right column of this slide, you can see a font type specific for people with cognitive problems. It is better for people with dyslexia, for example. The font type is Open Dyslexia. It's free and you can use in your computer and all the documents. Who uses accessible technologies? The answer may surprise you. It's not just people with vision or hearing. It also includes people, first, people with dyslexia, 10% of the population, people with temporary vision problems, or those related to age. For example, more than 9 million of people in Spain. People who serve through the keyboard because they find it more efficient. And people who read subtitle of a video so as not to disturb their coworkers. We all ask Siri, Alexa, or Google Assistant and give orders, for example. Okay, what is digitalization? Digitalization is not the same as digital transformation. Let's look an example. I take a photo of a document. It's digitalized. I send you this photo by email. No transformation then. So a blind person tries to read the attached file. His screen reader cannot read anything because the file is an image and it doesn't have text. We have created a digital barrier. Okay, please pay attention and don't create a digital barrier. How we can solve this barrier? Then we should use an OCR, optical character recognition software, and self-recognized text to the text document like Microsoft Word. The digital transformation process has been complete. Okay. The next topic, how to create accessible content. The first requirement is that the text is clear. Create simple text with simple language. Use font sizes of at least 12 points and 40 points if the document is for digital distribution only. The next requirement is about font types. Use sans serif types fonts such as Arial, Verdana, or Calibri. These fonts improve reading and facilitate understanding of the text. Okay, text format. Use sufficient line spacing at least 1.5 lines. Space between paragraphs of minimum 6 points, okay, before and later of the paragraph. Then do not abuse the centered text or the capital letters because they are more difficult to read. Do not justify the text on both sides. This creates artificial spaces and white rivers. It hinders their reading and therefore their understanding, especially for people with dyslexia or low vision. As you can see in the left column, the text is aligned to the left, and in the right column it is justified. With the justified text, big spaces are created between words. This causes problems to people with dyslexia or low vision, especially. Okay. Next. Our next topic is the use of language. Okay. We have to specify the main language of the document and the language changes present in the text. Okay. Otherwise, the pronunciation of the screen reader, okay, that use blind people will not be correct, and we will lose information. Okay, so we must set the default language of the document and mark the parts with the language changes. We will go back to this later in our practical exercise. Okay, another important topic is headings and the structure of the document. We should structure our content in sections. This improves understanding and facilitates navigation. Don't simulate headings by changing the appearance of the text. Use styles of the program like Microsoft Word. For example, in Microsoft Word, use heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, etc. styles to mark and heading. Many people with disability, mobility, and vision especially use the navigation panel for two reasons. First, to get an idea of what the document is about. Okay, so not everyone can use the mouse and scroll quickly. Two reasons: to navigate through it easily. Okay, so we can move from a heading to another simply by clicking on the item of the navigation panel. Okay, we click and go to the specific part of the document. To enable navigation panel, okay, we can do it. Go to by tab and navigation panel. Okay, we are going to put into practice what we have learned. Now, I open the Word document to do it. We are going to create an accessible Microsoft Word template. Okay, I go to save my screen. One moment. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay, on Microsoft Word, okay, we apply two requirements. First is the font sizes and font types, text, okay. Then we go to Home tab, and in the Styles panel, okay, we find normal style, okay. Click with the right button on this and select in the normal style and select modify. Okay. In the formatting section, we select a font type. For example, I choose Arial. Okay. We can see a list of font types. Also, we choose the font size text. Okay. We choose 12 points or 14 points. Okay. We can also select the align of the text. Okay, we can select the align left text. Well, on the bottom of the window, okay, click on format button and select paragraph. Okay. Okay. Go to the we go to the spacing section. Okay, and in the before and after spacing, select 6 points. Okay, this is the space of paragraphs. 6 points. Okay, and line spacing, we select 1.5 lines. Okay. Now go to the lines and page break tab. And in the formatting exceptions, enable or check don't hyphenate. Okay. And then the words isn't divided. Okay, click OK to say changes of paragraph, and again click on OK to save changes. Okay, you can see format is applied. Okay, we go to structure the document with the headings. Okay, the first sentence is a heading 1 of the document. Okay, the main title. Okay, go to the select and go to the styles panel and select heading 1. Okay, all the rest text we mark with heading 2. Okay, 2. Okay, then we can go to the view tab and select enable navigation panel. Okay, you can see on the second item, you can see document map, and you can see all the elements. On the end, in the text, we can mark the language text. For example, I write bal is balón in Spanish. Okay, I select balón and go at the bottom of the screen and click on the language toolbar. And we choose Spain and Spanish language and click OK. At this moment, the text is marked correctly. And then Pepe Parreño continues with the webinar.
Thank you so much, Jose Maria. And continue with images and non-text elements. All the non-textual elements, such as images, graphics, mathematical formulas, etc., must have an alternative text that describes the content or what we want to transmit with them, since these elements are not accessible through a screen reader. What must it contain the description? Please think that you are speaking with a friend by phone, and you want that the other person knows how is the dress that you are going to put this night. How your friend cannot see you, you must do a very good description. It is the description should not be superficial and should answer these questions. What is it? What is proposed? What does it transmit? And in the case that an element is merely decorative, it is necessary to write this in the text alternative. What elements should we describe? Images, mathematical formulas, graphic schemes, and it's necessary not only for blind people, if not also for people with other vision problems and cognitive problems. To include a description of an image in Word, we follow these steps. First, click on the right button of the image and select Format Picture. The Format Picture panel will appear then. Click on the Layout and Properties button. And finally, click on Alternative Text and fill in the description section. But if the version of your Word is 365, this is more directly. Click on the right button of the complete image and select Edit Alternative Text. It is all. The form and smart are. They are elements that they are not accessible and therefore their use is not recommended. Although we could think that we are introducing normal text in these elements, the resulting object is an image and therefore is not accessible for people who have vision problems. But in the case that we need to use them, we must provide a description. How? Click on the right button of the complete smart element and select Format Object. In the new window that appears in Format Shape, click on Design and Layouts. Finally, click on Alternative Text and write the description of the shape in the description box. Tables. What do you think? Is this table accessible or not? If you want, you can write this in the chat. What do you think about this? Nobody? Try? Okay. Apparently,
the chat is not working. I have it blocked, so I cannot use it.
Okay. Yes, it's not accessible. Okay. Why? Because as Adele has the same mark for theory and practice, the two cells will be combined. Visually, users will understand that the grace in cells 2 and 3 is the same, but the person that uses a screen reader could get lost when looking at the table and not understand it. So, which are the recommendations to construct accessible tables? The simpler a table, the easier it will be to understand. So it is not advisable to make complex groupings. If that were the case, it is better to divide a large table into several smaller ones. Use them only to show content, not to lay out content. Neither combine nor divide cells. The table must have the same number of rows per column and the same number of columns per row. Screen readers track their localization in a table by counting the cells in it. If one table is nested within another, or if the cells are combined or divided, the reader gets lost counting and cannot supply useful information about the table. Black cells in a table could also make a person who uses a screen reader think that there is nothing else in it. A solution is to write in the cell the word empty. And if we put this word in the same text color, then the word empty is not visually written inside the cell, but the screen reader is going to read. It is forbidden that we simulate tables by including tabulation or blank spaces, because we will be creating difficulties for people who use a screen reader. Word also allows the option drop table, but we should not use this because also the table resulting is not accessible. So, for each table, which must provide additional information. Which information? A title that identifies its purpose and an alternative text that describes its structure. It will allow users to know what the table contains and decide whether to read it or not. For that, we follow these steps. First, click on the right button of the selected table. Select Insert Caption. In the new window that appears, we introduce the caption that we want. In the Options sections, we select Table and select Above Selected Item, the position. Why? because in this way the title appears before the table, and the users can decide if read or not this table. We also can include a description or alternative text to facilitate the understanding of the structure of the table for people who use screen readers. Walls provide design of tables that are accessible, with enough contrast of color between the different rows and columns. The tables must have the headers defined correctly. Of course, it is more important if we have large tables that could occupy more than one page, since users of screen readers may encounter some accessibility problems when accessing information. If this happens, it is suggested that each time the page is full, the column headers are repeated on each and every page. For this, we follow these steps in work. First, select the entire table and click with the right mouse button. In the menu, we will select Table Properties. In the Row tab, we mark the option Repeat as header row at the top of each page. So now our table is accessible. Why? Because now the table has a title that describes its purpose, and the cells are not combined, and all the cells are full. Charts. What do you think about this chart? Is it accessible or not? Apparently, I cannot see any problem, no? But it is not accessible. Why? For two reasons. First, with this chart, we transmit information only through the color. We use blue color for women and red color for men. But there are people who have difficulty distinguishing colors, such as people with color blindness or low vision. For this reason, we must transmit the information using other elements and not exclusively with color. The second reason is there is not enough contrast between the color of the number and the color of the graph. So the people with vision problems cannot read the numbers 37% and 63%. So it is advisable to describe the chart, including an alternative text, because the chart is a non-textual element. And when we convert a Word document to PDF document, it is the same as an image. So it is necessary to have a description. So how we can create an accessible chart? There are two rules. One, we should not transmit information only with the color, and we must choose an accessible style. Now, our graph is accessible. Why? Because now we can see the data directly inside of the part of the charts, in addition to transmitting information through the color, and there is enough contrast color between the chart and the legend of the data. Another example, please see the following graph. It is the way that it is seen for people without disabilities and for the people with color blindness or low vision. If we not differentiate this line, the people with the color-blinded person cannot differentiate the both lines, okay? Because if we use only the color for them. One solution is, as we did here, is we put in the inflection points of the lines a different chart. For example, circle for the blue line and a square for the red line. What happens with the links? The links must be clearly recognizable through their own style, differentiating the same from the rest of the context of our document. The default style of a link is blue and underlined. It is recommended that the text of the link is not excessively long and the describe is proposed. It is forbidden to put click here, follow click, because the link text does not convey its purpose. Users of support products have specific tools to list the links of a document and access the content more quickly. It works if we do the things correctly. It is respecting the rules. Now we are going to see how to check the accessibility of a document. Why? Because it's the last step, okay? The last step is to verify that the document is really accessible. To perform this action, we will use the accessibility checker that works equally in Word and Excel and PowerPoint. To perform the accessibility check in Word, we follow these steps. First, click on File, and then on Information. Select the button Check for Issues, and in the drop-down that appears, click on Check Accessibility. And the Accessibility Checker panel will open. In the Accessibility Checker panel, we can see the detected problems, classified according to their severity: errors, warnings, and suggestions. The errors are a problem that make it impossible or very difficult to understand the document, okay? For each problem, we can see in Additional Information tab the reason of the correction to that problem. However, if the extension of the document is .doc, the accessibility checker will not be executed. We should save the document with a .docx extension so that the action is completed successfully. If the version of Office is 365, check the accessibility is easier. In the main bar, click Review tab, and in the drop box that appears, click on Check Accessibility. Or in the home bar, click in Tools and click on Check Accessibility. How do we create a PDF document in an accessible way? The easiest way to generate an accessible PDF document is to save our work done in Word. If we have taken into account the accessibility requirements seen in the previously, our document will also be accessible in PDF. On the contrary, our Word document does not contain a structure, no title, no alternative text, in images, etc. The resulting PDF document will not be accessible either. We should not save as PDF with the typical PDF printer type programs, such as PDF Creator, because the resulting PDF document is text without a structure. And in the worst case, the content is created in images, which will make the document inaccessible to people who use support products. To save a Word document as PDF, and for this PDF document maintain the accessible properties, we follow these steps. First, click on File and click on Save As. We click on Views to choose where to save our document. In the File tab drop-down, we select PDF. Now click on the Options button. In the Options button, the dialog box, we have to ensure that we activate the option Create Bookmark Using and choose headings. This way, a table of contents will be created in the navigation panel of the PDF document from headings of the Word document. Also, mark document properties. With this option, the metadata of our Office document, such as title, author, or date of creation in PDF document, will be included. Mark tags of the structure of the document for accessibility. This way, we will keep all the accessibility features used in Word in the PDF document. And uncheck bitmap text when fonts are not embedded. With this, we ensure that our PDF document is always text, regardless of if we have the type of font installed in our system or not. Now, we are going to put this on practice, And please, everybody opens the example we sent before in Word. Okay, we can see the Word document. Okay? I continue with the work that did the colleague Jose Maria. And we are working in image topics and tables, okay? Image. We can see an image, but we say that the screen reader, if is passed with this image, it is going to say only it is an image. It's impossible to describe. For that, we have to include alternative text. Okay, we are going to do this. We select the image on the right button of the mouse, edit alternative text. I don't know why don't appear. One moment. You can see or not? Yes, okay. And now we write the description of this picture. For example, I am going to write, it is a sculpture of a hand holding a pencil pointing to the sky. At the University of Alicante, symbolizing freedom of expression. Okay? So now we have the alternative text. Okay? I don't know, this disappeared. Sorry. Again. I don't know why. But okay. What can we do more? Please include a title. Okay? Again, select the image, click on right button of the mouse, and insert caption. This is a figure in options, okay? We can select figure. If you click the arrows, we can see equation table, okay, the figure is okay. And we include the title. For example, sculpture of a hand at University of Alicante, okay? And in position, we can select or above or below. Is better above because the user of screen reader can decide, reading the title, can decide if he wants more information about the image and read the description or not. Okay, so perfect. Now we have the title of the images. Tables. We are going to create a table. So for that, we go to in the main bar, click in the tab Insert, and we choose Table. Okay, in the arrow, we have two options: Insert Table and Draw Table. I said that never draw table because it is not accessible. It's an image. Okay, Insert Table, and we say the number of columns and rows. For example, 4 and 4. Perfect. Okay. And go to fill in students. And I want theory mark. Practice mark. And final mark. And our students are, again, Adele, Brian, and Emily. Okay, and the marks are 9, 9, 9, for example, 8, 8, 8, and 9, 10, 9. Okay? What more can we do in this table? So we click on the right button of the mouse, and we can insert okay. Please, we select the table, okay? Click in the right button and insert caption, okay? The title of the table. Now, it's not a figure. I want that, say that it is a table. Click in label and select table. Now, table 1, for example, we say here marks of accessibility exam, for example, okay? And select that about item. Perfect. We have the title. Also, we can select the table and click on the table design and put a more attractive design and accessible, okay? Perfect. Now, imagine that it is, everything is done. So I finish my Word document. Now I am going to check accessibility, okay? I am using a Mac, so in my case, I go to review, for example, check accessibility. And here I have errors and warnings, okay? If I click in errors, appears that I have an errors in picture 1. And warnings, if I click, I have all the warnings. For example, if I click in picture 1, okay, what they say that I read and say that I didn't include an alternative text for this image. So we have to put them. If I put them, this error is going to disappear. For example, click on the image, right button, edit alternative text, and put logo of project Transform for Europe. Okay. Okay. So you can see that now there is not errors. We solve the problem. Okay. Is everything okay? Yes. We also can put, for example, include the title. Okay. It's not a table. We are going to put that is a figure. Okay. And a title, logo, about the item. Okay. This table also is not, okay, is not accessible. Why? Because we have a cell that is empty. Okay. So we have to include. If we don't want that this C, we come to, for example, insert, change the color, and put the color is white. So visually, we cannot see this, the 7, okay? But the screen reader is going to read this, okay? Because we write inside, okay? So also we can put, for example, a design, okay, with more construct and with differentiate the headings for the other rows and columns. I am going to save this in PDF document accessible. Click File, Save As. Okay, I do this, and now I open the PDF. So this is the PDF document. We click here, click, and we can see the navigation panel. We can move through the document because it maintains all the properties of accessible we create in Word. Okay, so for that, it is we finish the first part of the webinar.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the T4E members for organizing this training. My name is Cristina Palomares. I work on the Digital Accessibility Unit, and I will introduce you to the accessible world, particularly to accessible presentations in PowerPoint. It's a pleasure to be here at this webinar, and I'm very thankful to all the people that participate in this meeting. Now I'm going to share my screen with you. Could you please confirm me that you can see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much. Please feel free to let me know if you have any trouble understanding me or if there are any sound issues. Okay. Well, Jose Maria and Pepe have explained us how essential it is to ensure that new digital products are accessible to everyone. And to achieve this, we must take into account the existing diversity and comply with accessibility requirements. If each of us works every day to be more inclusive, our organizations will too. As a quick reminder, I will say that universal design is what should be applied in our digital documents, web pages, or mobile applications. It is based on designing considering accessibility guidelines from the very beginning, not on adapting the content once the digital document is finished. If we prepare our material and after that we decide to make it accessible, the cost in time and probably money too will double. We must create or design perceivable, understandable, operable, and robust content so that most of the users can access the information regardless their condition or circumstances. This applies to any digital content. And it is important to know the 3 points that support digital accessibility, which are technology, platforms, and documents. If one of them doesn't work, the other doesn't either. As for the first point, it is technology. The user must have access to the technology. For example, if someone has an electronic device, such a smartphone, but doesn't have internet connection, the technology won't be accessible. Regarding the second one, it is the platform, which can be Google Drive, virtual classrooms, social networks. If that person we mentioned before has the technology but doesn't have access to the platform, the person won't be able to use it. And finally, the documents. If the user has the technology and access to the platform, but the documents are not accessible, they will be useless. That is why we should create accessible documents, as Jose Maria and Pepe told us, with text documents in Microsoft Word. Now, I'm going to show you how to design accessible presentations in PowerPoint, both in theory and in practice. Okay, so how can we design an accessible presentation? In PowerPoint, we should apply the same concepts of universal design that we have learned about. Microsoft PowerPoint is a software that allows us to create presentations, a conference, or to explain something in class. And all this through slides. These presentations are usually very visual, and they will be more legible if we apply the accessibility requirements. In this second part of the webinar, we are going to focus on the essential guidelines for designing a presentation, which are two: text and use of color. First, I will introduce you to these requirements, and then we will put them into practice with a real example. Let's start with the first requirement we mentioned before, that is text. Text is one of the main protagonists in PowerPoint slides, so we must select a font that facilitates reading. Sans serif fonts such as Arial or Verdana are the ones recommended. These fonts do not have serifs and favor the understanding of the text. Serifs are the small lines attached to the letters. They may create an artistic effect and look more professional or formal. However, these little details on the letters make the text difficult to read. On the contrary, when sans serif fonts came up, they became popular due to their clarity and legibility. The next feature to make the text accessible is size. The font size should be sufficient. For slide titles, it is recommended to use 44 points. We also must consider that line spacing should be 1.5 lines. And finally, it is recommended to align the paragraphs to the left instead of justifying them. Justified format, as we saw before, generates large gaps between words or rivers, as they are known in graphic design, which makes the text hard to read. Please observe the image where there are two examples of incorrect and correct text. The left one, which is the incorrect example, is a justified paragraph with those gaps between words, the rivers. People with low vision find this reading very difficult because they read with a screen magnifier. Let me show you how a screen magnifier works. Well, I have recorded how the screen magnifier works because the effect can be shown when the screen is shared. So I'm going to play the video and explain it while we watch it. On the left, there is a text justified from side to side, creating these rivers that we were talking about. They make the text very difficult to read. The font is a serif font, such as Times New Roman, Calibri, etc. And also we have capital letters. On the contrary, the text on the right is left aligned and the font type is Arial, which is a very recommended sans serif font. I'm going to start by magnifying the first line of the picture on the left. This is how a person with low vision sees the screen. They have to move through the windows with the mouse pointer. The serif font can create an artistic effect. However, these decorative lines make the letters difficult to distinguish. And as you can see, the rivers or gaps between words make an uncomfortable effect. It could seem that it's the end of the sentence when it's not. Let's focus now on the capital letters. Generally, people are used to reading lowercase text, so we all can easily understand an uppercase word or even a couple of them. On the contrary, a whole sentence in capital letters could be more difficult to read. Now we are going to see what happens if we use the screen magnifier on the correct text. As you can notice, it's a relief reading a sans serif font with clear letters, appropriate space between words. It makes a big difference. Okay, I would like to mention the Atkinson hyperlegible font type. The Robert Atkinson Braille Institute has designed this free font, which has greater legibility and readability for low vision readers. It focuses on letter form distinction to increase character recognition, ultimately improving readability. It is available for free at Google Fonts. You can look for it and you can download a family here from this button. And also at the Braille Institute website through this form. The download file includes 4 fonts and weights: the regular, the bold, the italics, and the italics bold too, and accent characters supporting 27 languages. Okay, so we have finished discussing text. Let's move on to color. Color is another very important factor in presentations. You already know that on PowerPoint slides, we try to include eye-catching images, and many times we overuse colors. Maybe most of you think that an image without gradients or without vibrant colors is boring, but I can assure you that it is possible to create attractive and accessible designs at the same time. We just must consider the following conditions. First is to provide a sufficient contrast between colors. The contrast is a measure of the difference in perceived brightness between two colors. The second condition is that the brightness difference expressed as a ratio must be that of at least 4.5 to 1. As you can see in the picture on the right, I have provided you with 2 examples regarding contrast. One of them, the light blue one, shows an insufficient contrast between background and foreground colors. The other one, the dark blue circle, shows a right contrast ratio. I'm sure you can read much more clearly the dark blue circle than the light blue one. I know that this is very specific, but there are a few tools to check the color contrast. From the Digital Accessibility Unit, we have developed one of them. Although it isn't in English yet, it's very, very easy to use. I'm going to visit the Digital Accessibility Unit website so that I can show you how to access to the tool. So this is our website. If you go to the top menu and click on Assistive Technology, you will find the accessible apps. And here at the bottom of the page, there is the link to the tool, to the color contrast checker. If we access to there, we find a form. We only must copy and paste in this form the color codes that we are going to use. And we can also choose them directly from the color selector and manage the brightness, the hue, and also the opacity. After choosing our colors, we can see an example of the combination and a box with the result. If it is correct, the box will be in green. And if it is incorrect in red and the word incorrect. There is another option to find other combinations that are accessible. If we want to maintain this color on the text, we can search for colors accessible. They are very similar, but they exceed the minimum contrast. So we can use them, all of them. Another tool is Contrast Finder, which is in English, and is very similar to the other one. This tool has more options, such as a selector of the minimum ratio and more technical information. The last tool I want to show you is Contrast Checker. This tool is used to test color contrast compliance with the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. The calculations are based on the formulas specified by the World Wide Web Consortium. To run the test, we have to select a foreground color and a background color. And the result will automatically generate. It is interesting using this tool because we will know what level of compliance we achieve with that color combination. Now that we have talked about the main uses and elements we will find in a PowerPoint presentation, it is time to start with the practical examples. Here is a list of 6 elements I would like to cover during the rest of the webinar. At the end of the practice, you will be able to create your own accessible presentation template. Firstly, we will learn how to design the slide master. After that, we will understand the importance of titles and reading order. Then we will discuss how to apply the alternative text, which is done in a very similar way to Microsoft Word. We will continue by checking for accessibility issues. And finally, we will save our presentation as an accessible PDF. The first element is the slide master. Thanks to the slide master, we will be able to define a base design template by selecting typography, colors, corporate background, such as the one I'm using right now. The slide master will also allow us to save the document as a template. And that way we will be able to use it in every presentation we want. Now I'm going to leave the presentation. And I'm going to create a new blank document so that I can show you how to use the slide master and how to apply the basic guidelines for designing an accessible template. Okay, so here is my blank presentation. Now let's go to the View tab in the main menu at the top. If we look for the Master Views section, we will find the Slide Master button. I'm going to press on it. You will see that in the left menu that has appeared, there is a list of different designs that we can use as a base design. The first slide on the list is the parent slide, which is the main one. As you can see, different types of slides with different structures, and they inherit from the first one. We can create our own structures too, but I think that with these slides, we already have plenty of possibilities. Okay, so now we are going to start discussing text. Remember to select the initial slide from which the other inherit, the part 1. From the master slide, we select the title of the slide and we move to the Home tab so that the font options appear. And from here, we are going to select Arial font. And size 44 points. This comes by default in my slide master, but if it doesn't in yours, you must set the size in 44 points because it's the recommended size. In my case, I'm going to apply the bold because I like the title to stand out. Remember that the majority of the text shouldn't be in bold style, but there is no problem in highlight some titles or words. As for the color of the text, I'm going to keep it black. Okay, below you can see a list of 3 levels, of 5 levels. It is recommended not to exceed the 3 levels, so I'm going to delete this. Since this last level has a minimum of 28 points, I'm going to set it 28. And the title is 44 points. I'm going to play with the levels of the list 1 and 2 and adjust them within this range. In my case, I'm going to set the second level in 32 points and the first one in 36. Of course, don't forget about the line spacing. In the body of the text should be 1.5 lines. In the title, it is not necessary for us to mind about the line spacing because the font size is large enough. Next step is to define, well, I'm forgetting about the Arial. Okay. Next step is to define the background with our logo or other decorative elements we consider necessary. And why is that? Why can't we set logotypes in every slide? That's because this would force us to mark those elements one by one as decorative elements, or to add an alternative text for each of them, for each logotype. The best practice is to assign the background as an image. If we go to the Slide Master tab, we have a colors menu to define our own color palette. And if we select the background styles drop-down, we will find plain background, colors, or gradients that I recommend not to use. So what is the right procedure? In this background styles drop-down, we press Format Background. And in the pane on the right, we select Picture or Texture Field. And here we are going to look for an image that we have previously designed. I'm going to include one of these backgrounds. And if we look at the thumbnails on the left, all these styles have been applied to the designs. We can also duplicate this slide master and apply another background for covers or section. We right-click on the main one and click on Duplicate Slide Master. And for this second slide master, I'm going to insert the blue background color. And also don't forget to change the font color to black, to white. Okay. Sorry. Right now we have our slide master complete and ready to use in our presentation. I'm going to change the view. So I press the view tab on the top and then the normal presentation view. Our first blank slide has inherited all those styles that we have set before, the text, the background, the color. We can create new slides with different structures, keeping the design accessible. I'm going to choose another design for this presentation. This one. And the blue one for the first one, the title. And I'm going to write the title of my accessible presentation template. PowerPoint. And well, it's that simple. We can have an accessible template and use it whenever we may need it. I would like to remind you that on our website, we have some accessible templates that are available for you to download. Although they are in Spanish, the styles are exactly the same. Well, let's continue with the second element, titles. It's better doing in this way. Okay. If we move the mouse pointer to the thumbnails menu on the left and go over one of the slides, it will show us the title of the slide in case it has one. This is the title that the screen reader will read to the user. If I remove it and I go over the slide again, then we can see it that has no title, and therefore the user won't know what the content of this slide is. Moreover, most of the screen reader users navigate the document through the outline view. I'm going to show you where to find it. We press the View tab on the top, and then the Outline view. We will find a schematic view of our document. We can notice that our current slide has no title, even though it is a very important element for the user. So I'm going to write it again. Okay, but what happens when we want to show you a large image or a video on full screen without titles and text? We have the option to visually hide elements, such as the title, so that the person who sees the screen will see a full screen picture without those elements showing, but the person who navigates with the screen reader or through the outline view will be able to read the title. And how can we hide the title? In the Home tab, there is the Drawing section and the Arrange drop-down. If we open it and then press on Selection pane, it will display on the right. If I click on the elements of the list, they will highlight on the slide with a gray border. Now, hiding this title is as simple as clicking on the eye icon, and it will disappear from the screen. However, the title is still on the slide, and we can check it from the outline view or by going to the thumbnail menu and hover it. This is the best way to hide an element and keeping the accessibility and meaning of the slide. It is also important to check the reading order and to ensure that it is correct, if the screen reader reads the last element of the slide and then the title as the final element, it won't make any sense for the user. We can manage the order from the same pane that we opened before in the Home, Arrange, and Selection pane. On this slide, we have 3 elements that are going to be read from bottom to top. I mean, the first element that the screen reader will read will be the title, then this text, and then the image. So imagine that the order is title, image, and text. Does it make sense? Well, not really. This always happens when you copy and paste an image from the internet or from your computer. So the image should be the last element to read. And we must change the order by clicking and dragging the elements up or down in the list. The third point is the alternative text. All the non-textual elements, such as images, charts, graphics, text boxes, etc., must have an alternative text that describes the content. Here you can read an example of correct alternative text for this photograph, which is the same than the other example in Microsoft Word. In this case, my alternative text is sculpture of a hand holding a pencil and pointing to the sky on a clear day, symbol of the University of Alicante that represents free speech. It is recommended not to exceed 150 characters in the alt text. As you can see, this text is describing exactly what we see in the picture, so people with vision problems can understand it. It is not correct to describe an image with its own file name, such as image.png, or leaving the alt text empty, or with a very short text that doesn't give information to the user. The description will vary depending on the type of the image that we want to include. Here is the way to add the alt text if you are using 2019 or 365 versions of Microsoft Office. It is very similar to Microsoft Word. If we click right on the image and go to Edit Alt Text, the Alt pane will appear, and we just have to write the description on the text area. For older versions, such as 2016 or 2013, the option menu is Format Object, and then you should look for the alt text section. If you have this version, you must fill the description box which corresponds to the alt text. I have the latest version, so if I right-click on the image, I can select Edit Alt Text option, and finally write the description in the text area. In addition to images, we must include a description in other non-textual elements, such as shapes, smart arts, and charts. Although they look like textual elements, as the example we are seeing in the slide, they are not. That's because when we save the document as a PDF, the whole chart becomes an image, and it should be described in order to be accessible. I'm going to show you how to add the alt text to these elements. We click not on the individual elements, but on the global one. And now we can add the description to it, following the steps we learned before by right-click, Edit Alt Text. And here I have the description of my chart. Okay, because the alternative text of a chart is very important to the blind users, in the description we should include every data or percentage. In this example, the correct alt text could be distribution of official studies in the 2021 to 2022 academic year, PhD 22%, degrees 36%, and masters 42%. We should not describe a chart or just describe it by mentioning what type of chart it is. We'll now take the same chart example to discuss the fourth point of this presentation, which is contrasting colors. Previously, we learned about the importance of alternative text when it comes to making charts accessible, but is alt text all we need to make this example completely accessible? Well, we saw an example very similar before, but do you think that we need to take into account other visual aspects? Well, we are going to discover it. Pay attention to the chart. This is how a colorblind person will see the chart. Note that it is difficult to differentiate the data by the colors of the chart areas. Now the green and orange colors have become a dark yellow, and the legend doesn't provide us with clear information. In conclusion, the chart is not accessible due to the color contrast. There are a lot of color blindness types. This example pictures how a person with protanopia sees colors. As you can see, color red can barely be perceived, but there are a few more types of color blindness. I'm going to share with you an application that I use for designing both graphic elements and websites. It is very easy to install and manage, and will help you to create accessible content related to color. I'm talking about Spectrum, which is a Chrome extension that we can install in our browser. You can look for it in Google because I don't have permissions to access at the web store right now. But you can look for it, the Spectrum extension in Chrome, and just install it. And when you have it installed, by simply clicking here in the icon of the extension, we will see a list of the different color blindness types. You can see how the colors of the web page change depending on the type that we select. This shows how a person suffering from a certain type of color blindness would see the colors being displayed on our screen. This tool is intended for web design, but there is a color blindness simulator, an online tool that allows to upload an image and to test the different types of color blindness. This is on the right, the default image, but I'm going to upload another one from my computer, the charts. In the same way that we have tested the web page before, we do it now with this image. On the right, there is the result. Tritanopia, and also black and white with no colors. It is a very useful tool to design accessible visual content. As we have noticed, it is important to give information in more ways than just color. Colorblind people won't distinguish between each part of the chart and its corresponding label. It is a good practice to add the label, the value, and the percentage in a box over the section. You can see the example on the right where I have used darker colors and I have set the data labels and its corresponding value inside a box with enough color contrast. With only a couple of changes, we have achieved an accessible chart. And this is the comparison of the same two graphs as a person with color blindness would see them. On the left, I provide you with an inaccessible example, and on the right, you can see the accessible one with highlighted labels on each section. Okay, now that we have designed an accessible presentation, it is time to check if we actually met every accessibility requirement or not. Microsoft PowerPoint has also a checker as Microsoft Word. And for the 2016 and 2013 versions, these are the steps to get to the tool. First, we access to the File menu, and then we click on the Info element. And from the Check for Issues drop-down button, we press Check Accessibility. The accessibility pane will display on the right. For the latest versions, we should open the Review tab on the top menu, and then click on the Check Accessibility button. I'm going to show you how to use it. From the Review tab on the top, we press the Check Accessibility button. And here it is my list of errors and warnings regarding accessibility. As you can see, there is a missing alternative text, a video without captions, and some slides where the elements are not in the correct order. If we click on the first error, it will take us directly to the element, and we can check that this image has no alt text. I'm going to correct it and continue with the other warnings. Well, let's now correct the order of one of the slides. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm going to repeat it. Okay, here. I'm going to open the selection pane and analyze whether its elements are in the incorrect order or not. As you may remember, we talked about this case before. You can see that the picture has been placed before the text. So in order to correct it, we just have to move one of the elements, and that's it. So now there are only 3 warnings about the reading order. Okay, so before saving the document, we must make sure that this check list is empty, at least the errors list. I'm going to continue with the presentation. So finally, we have completed the most practical part of the webinar. The last step we are going to address is how to save our accessible presentation in PDF. Here we will consider some tips that will help us maintain the accessibility features of our presentation, even after we change its format. This is important because when we save the document as PDF, the resulting PDF will also be accessible, and this way we will be able to share an accessible document. So how do we do this? As long as we have considered all the aspects of universal design and we have resolved the accessibility errors that appeared in the check results list, we can proceed to save our presentation as a PDF. The PDF document will keep all the options we set while we were designing it. I remind you not to use the PDF Maker programs because they tend to remove all the accessibility features and they could also damage the document. To save the document, we go to File menu on the top and then to Save As option or to save a copy. When the Save window opens, we must select the type of the document, PDF, and after that, click on the Options button. Now, pay attention to the elements we should check or uncheck. We must check two options, Document Properties and Document Structure Tags for accessibility. That will keep the semantic meaning of the elements, the alt text, the tags. On the contrary, it is necessary to uncheck in the PDF options the bitmap text when fonts may not be embedded. What does this option mean? Suppose this option is checked. If we use a custom font type in our presentation and we share the document with a person who doesn't have that font type installed in their computer, the text will become an image. I'm sure you have come across PDF documents in which, when selecting the text to copy it, you weren't able to do so. That's because this text has become an image, a bitmap. If we unmark this option, the custom font will be modified by a font that we do have installed in our computer. The text will continue to be text, selectable and readable by the screen readers. Okay. Now I click on the Save button. And I'm going to check our document. The text is totally selectable. Every element is marked in the labels pane. And also the alternative text is in the image. This is thanks to the fact that we have marked the option to preserve tags and all accessible components. Now our document is ready to be shared. Okay. These are the options that we were talking before. I'm going to show you an online free tool which is called Pave. Okay. Pave is used to edit PDF documents and to correct accessibility errors. It comes in handy in cases we receive a PDF document and we need to edit the document, but we also want to keep the accessibility features. It is also useful for checking whether the document is accessible and for improving it. However, this tool may help us with some points, but it also creates new errors, which if we don't check it manually, we will make the document inaccessible. So you must use it wisely and carefully. For use it, we just press the Start button. And here it is the interface. We click on the Upload file. And I'm going to select the PDF that we have just made. So here we can see the document. and the properties, the issues, details, and also the reading order. But as I was saying, it's a very complex application. We can just edit some of the content, but if we don't pay attention to the reading order, when we save it, the document won't be accessible. Okay, to conclude, I would recommend that you don't include essential text in the PowerPoint notes. They are only used for the person who is going to give a presentation with the presenter view. Also, when saving the document as a PDF, notes are not saved in it, so it's better not to include something important in the notes section. I also recommend that you do not use animations and transitions in your slides. I know that it is something that became very fashionable and drew a lot of attention some time ago, but these effects are no longer used. Moreover, there are people who can be confused by these animations. So I suggest you forget about transitions. The less, the better. The last aspect I would like to highlight is that you should also get used to describing all non-textual elements. That is super important for people who cannot see the images, the graphs, the charts, as we have discussed before. And that's all for today. Thank you very much for your attention. It was a pleasure being here today, and I hope this training was useful and that you will put in practice our recommendations. And remember that an inclusive university will help us all. In case you want to contact us, you can do so by email or through our social networks, and we will be very happy to solve any doubts you may have.